Yo, the Persona games aren't the only RPG life simulator hybrids out there. For the Nintendo Switch, Fire Emblem Three Houses fills this role. I decided to talk about this game because I recently saw that the protagonist of the game was announced for Smash Brothers, and a lot of people was upset about it, hoping it was another well-known video game icon. Now that fan base, you know, always have something to complain about. But with Fire Emblem Three Houses, I thought it would be a good time to talk about it since this character makes it fresh in people's minds. Now, Fire Emblem Three Houses was the first game that I got for the Nintendo Switch. I had played a couple of the others on the 3DS and started to really enjoy the series. And I enjoyed games like Persona 3, 4, and 5. And I already saw from the build up to Three Houses that there was some elements that was going to be similar between it and the Persona games. But if I was to explain what Fire Emblem Three Houses was to someone, who hadn't played the series before, or really this particular game, I would say think about the Game of Thrones show in an anime form with school life mixed in, which is a very weird thing to say, but it essentially is what Fire Emblem Three Houses is, and it is excellent. So you play as a mercenary who gets recruited as a teacher at this church where three countries send their elite to train to be officers and royalty at. And essentially, things play out where you select one of these three countries or three houses to supervise and be the teacher of. So essentially, you're put in charge of a group of students. They're adults or whatever. It's not that type of anime type of deal, but you're put in charge of a group of students, and you actually you actually get to guide what they focus on in their studies, and it relates to the gameplay because Fire Emblem at its core is a strategy RPG, which is just like other JRPGs or regular RPGs, but the focus is much more on combat more than anything. You don't really travel a map getting into random battles. It's really story than battles, like on a grid base. Take your time moving each piece, which is a person, and they fight out. But regardless, this is a brilliant system because unlike Persona, where your character interacts kind of as a peer, with you taking on a teacher role, it kind of makes you bond with all of the students and does care about these other students, which end up kind of being your party members. These are the people you fight alongside, whatever house you select. And with that, you got three different playthroughs potentially. And my first playthrough was nearly 100 hours. So, and different things happen. Now, of course, there are some things that are the same across all the playthroughs, but each playthrough does go through its own route for those particular schools. And while you're in battle and in the classes, you could kind of pair students up or have them support each other, and they gain these support levels, which in a way is similar to the social links, but in Fire Emblem predates it with the support levels. As they grow, you get special interactions between the characters, whether it's with you and a particular character, or the two of the students together, or fellow teachers or whatnot. This gives you more insight into the various characters' personalities, and these characters are really deep. They start off as you would have them kind of pegged in some random stereotype based on how they look, but each character has like a story to tell, and you get to know different aspects of it based on who they get close to. Like some characters don't like each other, and as they get to know each other they find out why, and sometimes they end up liking each other, not in a romantic sense but in a more organic sense. I thought it was a really nice touch, and to say that most of these lines are voiced, and I mean like very high quality voice acting at that, was very impressive. This story, given that it's a Nintendo game, you might think, oh, it's gonna be lighthearted or the stakes might not be that high, but it's actually one of the more darker stories I've seen Nintendo present. Now, it's not dark as in doom and gloom and just, for the sake of shock value. It just tells a mature story, really a heartbreaking story. Because as the game goes on, these students do get older, and when they get in peril and some of them don't make it, it touches you because you literally helped guide them and saw them grow. Um, it's very satisfying to go through the game. But like I say, only part of the game is guiding them in their various classes. You also have to focus on the combat, which is grid based or strategy RPG. Now, I think this game for the Fire Emblem series, which has been around for a long time, decided to kind of strip away some of the traditional aspects and make it more welcoming for newcomers. It used to be where a sword fighter would pretty much crush an axe wielder, and a lance wielder would crush a sword user, and and so on and so forth. Things like that. They used to have a triangle system that kind of dictated how you would play in past games. But that seems to be reduced significantly in this game. So you can kind of have people attack regardless of the weapon that they use. I mean, sometimes they'll have things that do a lot more damage to a particular type of unit or a person using a particular type of weapon. But you could really strategize how you want in order to play the game. But you still have to be wise. Um, Another good part about the game is that you have the option to have permadeath on there, and which I do recommend that you play with because it's not the most difficult game to play, especially if you play past Fire Emblem games. And having the permadeath on just makes it, you still have to value your moves because you might not want to lose a unit that you just care about. They become more than just a tank or a gun or a sword. They're people that you have grown to know and hear their stories and whatnot. So even though the main fight itself might not be in the balance, you will still be extra careful because you don't want to lose a unit that you'd invested in. Um, and which has been a mark of all the Fire Emblem games. They've almost all have had that option, and I recommend it here, especially since there's kind of like a reverse option, a way that you can kind of go back a few turns if you make a mistake. So with that in place, you can kind of clear up a mistake without resetting the game and being super overly cautious. You can take more chances and whatnot. I think it strikes a really good balance. All in all, with the game's visuals, I think it looks good. It does it does stutter a little because the game has a big hub world that takes place at a church, and you get to run around that church almost like the city from Persona 5. And there's, various characters, and you can stop and buy weapons and fish. And, that's where you go and communicate with everybody around this church slash, training ground for military students. Um, it has an anime art style, but with I can say, an anime slash Game of Thrones type of art style that I think will age incredibly well. It's not the most taxing game, I think, on the Switch hardware, but I think this art style will serve it well into the future. And the soundtrack is very strong too. And I already said that I really liked the voice acting, which is top notch. And there's an absurd amount of voice lines in this game. And I'm just, it's not really nothing bad I could say about the game. It was the game that made me want to finally go ahead and get the Switch, and I was completely satisfied with it. I completely recommend people getting this game if they have any interest in RPGs. It is, in a technical sense, a strategy RPG, and I think it's a great ambassador for strategy RPGs. With the way that you bond with the students on, like, or your party members, is you're getting the story that you get from a traditional role playing game or Japanese role playing game, along with a more deliberate combat. And it's married in such a way where those hours will just kind of melt on by. And when the story starts to pick up, you'll be really invested. Like, this is worth every bit of $60. I think I saw some publications give it Game of the Year type of credit. It completely deserves it in that sense. I think it's at least for the few games I was able to play in 2019, it was one of the ones that had the best mix of gameplay and story and production values. And just another feather in Nintendo's cap. If you get a chance, check it out. You'll like that the main character is in Smash. It's essentially a mute character. You kind of guide that character's personality, but he's a cool character, or he or she is a cool character. Check out the game. It's a 9.5 out of 10, worth every drop of the money. And I'll hit you with another review another day. Peace.